Hello, I'm Richard Murphy, and as we're recording this, the UK as a whole is heading for lockdown. Different rules in different member countries, but fundamentally lockdown. And that's something that no one really wanted again, me included. So can we afford it? The answer is yes. Can we afford it for a long time? The answer is yes, if we need to. Do we want to have it for a long time? Of course, no. But let's just talk about the economics of this. The economics of this are that we have a healthcare system that could collapse if the coronavirus is not managed. I've looked at the data, I've had it explained to me by people who understand it a lot better than I do. I have no doubt that the government is absolutely right to lock down at the moment. The risk of the number of deaths from coronavirus escalating out of control and overwhelming the NHS is very high indeed. So we have to lock down. What does lockdown mean? Well, we're not going to be able to behave economically as we would wish. We're not going to be able to behave socially as we wish. And both of those have, of course, a massive cost. I'm not going to discuss the social cost. We all know how difficult it is. But the economic cost is that businesses are not going to be able to operate as they want to. They are not going to make as much money as they would expect to. And of course, employees of those businesses and the self-employed are also going to see the knock-on effect of not being at work and not having as much money. Now, this matters. Why does it matter? Because although in the short term, in fact, most of us, not all of us, but most of us can survive some degree of downturn for a period, what we can't do is survive in the long term on a downturn. Let me give you a simple example and why businesses are at risk. Let's take a very simple, straightforward business and let's suppose it turns over £20,000 a month. And for every £10 it sells, it costs £7 in terms of buying in what it does sell. So if it makes sales of £20,000 in a month, it actually costs it £14,000 to make those sales. That leaves it with what we call in accounting terms a gross profit of £6,000 in a month. Now, suppose it has overhead costs of £5,000 in a month. Overhead costs are things like the rent, the insurance, the cost of the accountancy, the interest that has to be paid on the bank loan, and all those other things, business rates, and etc. Now, if those are £5,000 a month, but the gross profit is £6,000 a month, there's a profit at the end of the day of £1,000 in the month. Not a great profit, but at least a profit. Now, let's put that business into lockdown and presume that it can only make half its sales. Instead of making sales of £20,000 a month, it makes sales of £10,000 a month. It now makes a gross profit of only £3,000. But do the overheads go down? Unfortunately, in most cases, no, they don't. The bank will still want its interest paid, even if it will defer repayment of a loan. The business rates are at the moment on hold, but the rent probably isn't. The accounts will still need to be prepared. The insurance is still an ongoing cost, and so on. Those costs will all be there. Even if the overheads go down from, say, £5,000 a month, as we said before, to £4,000 a month, there's only £3,000 of gross profit now. That means it's making a loss. And no business can survive in the long term by making a loss. The reason why is the cash runs out. Quite simply, more cash goes out of a loss-making business than comes into it. And unless there is somebody who's going to play sugar daddy to it, and frankly, that's pretty rare in the case of a loss-making business, why would you want to support one? Then it will go out of business. And all of those who are dependent upon it, whether they're the owners, the employees, but also remember the suppliers, and in some cases as well, the customers who are dependent upon what it makes, all of them will suffer as a consequence. Now, this is the real economic cost of lockdown. It's why we don't want lockdown to last for long, because businesses will fail. Now, there are ways to manage this. I'm going to make more videos on this issue. But the fundamental point is that loss-making is not sustainable. So the crisis of lockdown is a very real one for businesses that have already lost money in 2020. It's a real one for the employees. It's one we should all be concerned about. And what is staggering is that although the government has announced in late October, early November 2020 that it's going to support employees, there's been no programme announced so far of further support for business. Now, businesses are going to face lockdown of at least a month, but one of the most profitable months of the year for many of the businesses most affected in retail and hospitality. And there's a very good chance that this lockdown is going to carry on beyond December the 2nd. In fact, everything I hear epidemiologically says we're going to move this until at least a week before Christmas, and very likely started again very soon after Christmas is over, have to carry on into January. Do that because that affects the January sales for some of these businesses as well, and we're in deep trouble. These businesses can't make it through that period without making normal levels of sales. I am deeply worried by this, and unless the government supports businesses through this process, we can't keep our economy going through lockdown. So furlough extension is great, it's good news for employees, but if we're to survive lockdown, and we can survive lockdown, the government has to help those businesses who are going to be forced to close, because if they don't, we aren't going to have an economy to pick up again in January or February or whenever it is that we come out of this situation and begin to try to function again. We are in a crisis. The government doesn't appear to be behaving appropriately for a country in economic crisis, and unless they do, the meltdown that we're going to see in 2021 is just too horrible to imagine. Thanks for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, I'm pleased. If you want to see other videos like this, there are links below this screen. If you want to subscribe, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter as well, @RichardJMurphy. Look at my blog, Tax Research UK. And if you'd like to donate, because this video series is being largely paid for by donations, there is a donations button on every single post on my blog. Thanks a lot.